Right, Mr. Fern has just dropped a new video, the biggest fraud on TV. Right, let's get into this, man. Let's see this, chat. The biggest scam on TV, biggest fraud.
It's September 9th, 2001. British host Chris Tarrant welcomes 8 contestants to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. They're all eager to get rich, but to sit on the hot seat, you have to win fastest finger first.
Okay.
Put these words in the order they occur in the title of the Agatha Christie thriller.
I used to watch this.
Nile on Death the.
The correct answer is Death on the Nile.
All these were correct. Most of them, nearly all of them. Who was fastest? Charles Ingram in 3.9.
Ain't no way this was a scam.
Major Charles Ingram has been a contestant twice before. Now he finally gets his chance. Confidently, he takes his place. But this confidence doesn't last long. Ingram is often unsure of his answers.
Wait, you guys remember this?
This confidence doesn't last long. Ingram is often unsure of his answers. After just 7 out of 15 questions, he merely has 1 of his 3 jokers left. But somehow he manages to answer correctly again and again. And then the time has come. Just 1 more correct answer separates him from £1 million.
A number 1 followed by 100 zeros is known by what name?
A number 1 followed by 100 zeros is known by what name?
Google. Megatron.
Oh, I'll say Google.
Gigabit.
Because that's how Google has the name, right? That's what it is, no?
Nanomole.
I say Google.
I don't think I've heard of a Google.
But seconds later, even though he never heard of a Google, he completely changes his guess.
I really do think it's a Google.
The tension in the studio is almost unbearable.
You just won 1 million!
Yeah, I'll say Google. He won 1 mil.
Only 2 people managed to achieve that before him. An incredible run against all odds.
Wow.
Maybe too incredible. In fact, Major Charles Ingram cheated. He is quite possibly the biggest fraud who has ever been on television.
No!
He and his accomplices have been tried and convicted. Their heist has been publicized and fictionalized. Yet, to this day, they maintain their innocence.
We didn't do it. We really didn't cheat.
20 years later, there are still a lot of open questions. And behind Ingram's case lurks an even weirder story. One of an underground organization that systematically exploited the show for years. How did they do it?
Yo! That's mad! Aye, that's crazy. So you're saying you'll be thinking, this is the answer, and they'll cough. Oh my gosh. Maybe it might be answer 1, 2, 3, 4. And they might go 2, 1, 3, 4. Alright, let's see. This is mad.
While Ingram is celebrating his victory in front of the camera, there's turmoil behind the scenes. The showrunners are sussed out. A sound technician already called their CEO Paul Smith, while Ingram was still answering questions. Smith told him to keep the show going. Ingram receives a check with his winnings from Tarrant. But the check is retained by Celador, the company behind the show, for 8 days for processing. In the meantime, Smith and the technicians look back at their material. Ingram often seemed to have no clue, really. How did this guy, after being left with 1 joker at £4,000, snatch the million? The probability of just guessing a 1 in 4 7 times in a row plus a 1 in 2 is 0.003%. No way, right? They look at his speech pattern when thinking about his answers.
Craig David, I just can't. I don't think I've never heard of Craig David.
There's something interesting happening here. No matter the question, Ingram goes through all 4 possible answers, often chronologically, repeatedly.
Emmental is a cheese from which country?
It could be France, I suppose. Then again, it could be Italy, so... or maybe it's the Netherlands.
Right. Yes. That's sort of how the question works, Charles.
No, I got it.
That in itself might still be quite normal behavior. It seems fairly rational to go 1 by 1 if you're not sure. But then...
Who was the second husband of Jacqueline Kennedy? Adnan Khashoggi, Ronald Reagan, Aristotle Onassis, Rupert Murdoch.
Okay, I'm not certain. I would have thought that it would be.
Oh, I just heard
Aristotle
something.
Onassis.
Oh, cough.
Wait, someone coughed just now.
I heard
At the
the cough.
correct option.
Aristotle Onassis.
Aristotle Onassis was indeed married to Kennedy.
Wow.
And then it happens again.
But the reason I think it's cricket is because I
And again.
think it was Holbein.
Wow.
The studio obviously has cameras and mics for the candidate and the show host, but it also has cameras and mics pointed at the audience for reaction shots. The
Wow.
technicians start looking at what's happening in the crowd while Ingram is reading out the options. Who is coughing? And always at the right time.
Which American platform was founded in 2012 and is known for its creative and interactive online lessons? A. Biscuit. B. Bilingual. C. Bicycle. D. Brilliant.
You already know it. Brilliant is a great way to learn new
W ad, man. Now, you know what? Great ad. Because I was sat there thinking, what's the answer to this question? Do you know what? Fair play.
skills. You can
Fair
choose
play,
between
man.
thousands content to
Fair
force
play,
on
man.
statistically
Wow.
by guessing, or if all these coughs
Wow.
could be random, that might be a good starting point. If that's not your cup
Wow.
of tea, there's a vast library
Oh
of others
my gosh.
for a full You lost who 1%
But I'm
off
sorry, though. I
annual
still have to
premium
skip it, though,
subscription.
man.
Last night on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was a sensation in the UK at the time. The show was just 4 years old, and at its height about 19 million people tuned in, a third of the entire population. People
used to
were
watch this.
obsessed with it. That was also the case with Charles Ingram and his wife Diana. Her brother Adrian Pollock had been on the show 4 times before, on the hot seat once, and won £32,000. A few months later, she managed to get on the hot seat and won £32,000
Wait, chat, do they still do this show? I want to go on this show.
as well.
So I remember talking to her in the bar afterwards, and I said, "Great, congratulations." She said, "Only 32." And I said to her, "It's a huge amount of money." She went, "Yes, but I should have done more. I should have beaten my brother and all this."
Mind you, it is incredibly difficult to get a spot on this show. Thousands, if
Oh,
not
it's
millions of
difficult.
people try. The selection process
still
is
do
brutal.
it?
But this family managed to get in over and over again. They knew the system inside out and how to play it. Adrian even had a mock-up fastest finger first console at home. He and Diana wanted to publish a book with tips on how to get on the show. But as it turns out, they were not the only ones who knew the system.
Wow.
And some were a lot better at exploiting it.
Wow.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is not broadcast live and has a set runtime. So when Charles finally gets his shot, filming stops for the day after the £4,000 question.
And I remember us saying, "God, that poor bloody Major, you know, he's got as much chance of getting the 32,000, you know, as going to the moon in a rocket." I mean, there was just no way this guy could possibly go much further.
Ambitious Diana is frustrated with Charles. That would make sense, because Charles is a smart man. He holds university degrees in engineering and management and will later be accepted by Mensa. That evening, as the couple is on their way home on the M4, their frustrations likely intensify as they dwell on the opportunity for immense wealth slipping away right from under their grasp. They will not let that happen. Diana and Charles call Tequin Wittock. He's a Welsh college lecturer and fellow game show enthusiast. Adrian and Diana have been training Tequin and helping him to get on the show. He's supposed to be a candidate tomorrow, so he will be in the studio. Charles, Diana, and Tequin are on the phone for 5 minutes. They supposedly devise a very simple, yet effective plan. Charles reads out the answers. Whoever knows the answer coughs when it comes up.
Have you got a strategy?
Well, I have actually. I have got a strategy. I was a bit defensive on the last show. You know, I sort of started talking myself out of answers that, frankly, I should have known and did know. So this time I'm going on the counterattack.
This counterattack obviously
Wow.
works. Though he repeatedly says he has no idea or never heard of certain options, he goes on to 180 pivot seconds later.
Craig David, I just can't. I don't think I've never heard of Craig David, to be honest. I've just never heard of Craig David. No, I'll go Craig David. Yeah.
You just won £32,000.
I don't think it's Paris. I think it's Berlin. I'm going to go for Paris.
You thought it was Berlin. You changed your mind to Paris. That brought you 500,000.
I
Wow.
don't think I've heard of a Google. I don't actually know what a Google is, but I really do think it's a Google.
You just won 1 million!
Back behind the scenes, a total of 192 coughs have been recorded by the microphones in the studio.
192 coughs. That's not normal. Wow, bruh. I really want to see what they do. I wonder if they ask for the money back or whatever. Wow. This was everywhere when it came out. Oh my word. How did I not hear of this? This is crazy. Was I watching the game, Arsenal game with KSI? No, I wasn't. I wasn't. I'm not gonna lie. Nah, this is crazy. What's up, Zio? Like, yeah, this is the guy who cheated. How have I not heard about this? What?
A lot of them when a correct answer was mentioned. Paul Smith is confident this can't be a coincidence and calls the police. Later, he makes another call.
Mr. Ingram, we didn't meet. I am the managing director of Celador.
Right.
I think I should just get straight to the point.
Yep.
And effectively say what is a pre-prepared statement here.
Wow.
I have to tell you that we have suspicions from viewing the recording of last Monday's program and subsequently studying the tapes carefully that there were irregularities during the taping of the show in which you participated.
Oh, good Lord, no.
Because of that, I have to tell you that these suspicions have been referred to the police.
Right.
And thus, we, for not for the moment, will be airing the program or indeed authorizing payment of the check.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I completely refute that, obviously. Good Lord, I'm absolutely gobsmacked. All right, well, thanks for letting me know.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, bye.
1.5 years later, the case went to trial. It quickly turned into a tabloid frenzy. The story of major fraud was just too sensational. In the end, all 3 defendants were found guilty. 2 documentaries were made. The Ingrams never accepted the verdict.
We didn't cheat on that show. There was no plan to cheat.
Wow. Oh my days. This is mad. If he was innocent, you think he would rage quit? Did he get the money? Let's see.
On that
Did he
show.
go to jail?
I won that money perfectly honestly and fairly and squarely, and while I was sitting there in the centre of the studio, I did not notice any coughing at all. I was entirely unaware of it. As for the victims, I've heard a lot of people say that this is a victimless crime. Well, actually, there are victims. The 3 defendants were the victims. We should not have been found guilty on the evidence that was presented in court. We were found guilty on a very good story.
Why did you cough then, Diana? I think I needed to clear my throat.
The coughs were just coincidental, according to them. Wittock suffered from a persistent cough all his life.
Wow.
The coughing footage presented in the court had been edited by Celador to accentuate the coughs. Also, why would 3 intelligent people not come up with a smarter way to cheat? At least code the coughs. If the answer is C, cough on D, and so on. Wittock, who supposedly coughed 19 times to hint at the correct answers, flopped when he was in the hot seat. Why was he so all-knowing when supposedly helping Charles? And why would he join such a scheme? How could he have made sure he actually got his share of the money? And perhaps most importantly,
what if the show actually added the cough in post-production? That is a good question, you know? No, but I mean, yeah, it's clear they did it. But imagine if they... let's just say imagine. Because it's not live, like how, like, you know what I'm saying? That's mad.
was coughing in the audience even audible on stage?
People cough like mad. Everybody's coughing in the studio because they're sort of...
2001 is 23 years ago. That's a long time ago. 23 years ago, I was 2 years old. That is a long time still. You'd be more annoyed if they lost the money you've won, if you won it fair. True.
Sort of enclosed or whatever. I had no idea. There was so much noise in the studio that night. It was like a madhouse. People were screaming, they were cheering.
The 2014 book Bad Show casts a lot of doubts on the trial. Similarly did the show Quiz.
Imagine if they were
playing
actually
the devil's
innocent.
advocate.
Nah, I don't
Wouldn't
think they were.
Wittock's chronic illness also be a brilliant cover? If he was just a man who coughed constantly, who would suspect these coughs to be hints? Simple, yes, but also brilliantly hiding in plain sight. More generally, how likely is it that 19 significant coughs are just a coincidence?
Nah, they're guilty,
Liam
man.
Shaw
They're
made a
guilty.
fascinating statistical
They're guilty.
analysis to answer this very question.
And I remembered the case from when I was a child, and I was very interested in the statistics of the unlikeliness of the coughing coming after the correct answers. So I wanted to investigate that for myself. And so I just attempted to do that because it was locked down and I couldn't leave the house. So I found a way to entertain myself, basically.
The chance for Wittock's 19 cuffs to be coincidental within the time frame the show was filmed is incredibly low, if these were his only cuffs.
And say that half of all of those 192 coughs
Wow.
were Techman Wittock, then in the statistical trials that I ran, I found that the probability of getting at least 19 coughs would be about 8%.
This ignores the fact that Diana likely too coughed at significant moments.
The analysis I did was just for fun.
Wait, is this real footage, chat?
Diana likely...
Diana, you are guilty as hell, man. You are guilty as hell. Bro, she even has a mic on her too. So that stuff about, the studio was loud. Bro, there is literally a microphone on this woman right here. What the hell?
Too coughed at significant moments.
The analysis I did was just for fun, and it's quite silly. But what it convinced me of is that there's no real dispute about the fact that there is some sort of association between coughs and correct answers.
Looking at Shaw's math, the coughs were probably not random. But this clearly was a case of trial by media. According to the New York Times, the actual trial should have been a lot more extensive and critical. They are not sure if there would have been enough evidence to prove guilt. And just as the Ingrams were in the spotlight, another group quietly gamed the shit.
Hold on, there's no way she actually teared up. There's no way she actually has tears of joy. I cannot believe that. Cries in scam.
The spotlight, another
Cries in
group
fraud.
quietly gamed the show for years. Paddy Spooner was the first person to appear on multiple versions of the show. He won $250,000 in Australia, £250,000 in the UK, and €1,000 in Ireland. He knew how to get on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and made no secret of it.
Well, in England, 7 million people phone in. I worked out the population's a lot smaller, and given that most people wait until they've watched the programme before phoning in, so I made my calls in one evening.
215 in one evening?
Yeah, I'm a pretty boring bloke.
His runs were ice cold, focused, with confident, decisive answers.
The last convicts transported from Britain arrived in Fremantle in which year?
1868.
A. 1848. B. 1858.
He's already said the answer.
C. 1868.
What?
D. 1858.
Hold on.
A. Arrived in Fremantle in which year?
1868.
Bro's already said the answer before he's even read out the choices.
A. 1848.
Who is this man? Einstein?
B. 1858. C. 1868. D. 1878.
I'll play and I'll lock in C, 1868.
You had to go before you even came up, didn't you?
What?
All right, let's lock it in.
Huh?
Paddy, you won $250,000.
He dropped out of college and lived off of pub quizzes before going professional. After bombing on the Irish version, Spooner met Keith Burgess. Burgess had helped people to get on the show for a fee. They teamed up to take that business to the next level. Burgess and Spooner built an underground syndicate called the Consortium. They provided a service to reliably get people on the show and to maximize their winnings. Step 1, get the call.
Well, I'm not gonna lie though. This builds some credibility to the show though, because as a viewer now, I now know that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is not fixed. That's one thing I know. They're actually getting real people and it's very hard to get onto the show. So I'm not gonna lie, this does build the credibility of the show, which does kind of make me think, why the hell would they then kind of tamper with the evidence and in post-production and whatnot? So I'm not gonna lie, fair play, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? It's actually real shit. Fair play. For these guys to be creating underground centers to basically get you onto the show and go around the system, fair play. I respect the show.
Thanks.
Not many are like that these days, to be fair.
Step 1, get the call. They would
like Deal or No Deal. That's another show I used to watch back in the day. I wonder if that's real. I never know to this day.
spend thousands of pounds and a lot of hours dialing the show's premium rate registration lines. Once through, they played recordings of their clients leaving messages with their name and number. Step 2, stall. Once the client got a call back from the show producers, they would answer that he or she wasn't home at the moment. A member of the consortium would then race to the client's home to help with step 3.
Wow.
Get close. Potential contestants had to answer a closest to question on the phone. Say, how tall is Big Ben? 96 meters is correct, but 93 or 100 will do. Spooner figured out that these questions were always pulled from the Office for National Statistics database and that they were asked in rotation. Step 4. Make fingers fast. Reminiscent of the Ingrams, consortium clients would practice on modeled buzzers. Step 5. Fake a friend. Okay, this is for sure the craziest part. Once a client was on the hot seat and used the phone a friend joker, the consortium would reroute this call to a safe house. A neutral person called The Voice would pick up on a phone with a silent mute button. In the room, loads of facts laid out on the floor.
Whoa!
Paddy, Keith, a guy named John, a pop culture expert, Poppy at a computer with Google open, and Crack the Bricky, whoever the f that was. The consortium secured 200 spots on the show from 2002 to 2007. 55 clients made it to the hot seat, winning £4.2 million.
Oh
That's
my
26% of all the money won on the show during that period. They only stopped because the producers didn't give people second chances anymore if they weren't home, so step 2 fell apart. 25% of the winnings went to Keith Burgess and Paddy Spooner. They published a book about their operation in 2021.
Why the hell would you go and publish a book and expose it? Oh, this is the problem, man. When people like get money, bro, like, hey, I'm not supporting what they do, but like, bro, just shut up and keep doing your shit. Like, what the hell? Why are you going to write a book about it and expose everything?
None of what they did was illegal. It had no consequences for them.
Wait, it wasn't illegal?
None of what they did was illegal.
Oh, it wasn't
had
illegal?
No consequences for them.
Damn.
Spooner even met.
To be fair, it's not. To be fair, it's not illegal, is it? It's not illegal, is it? They just outsmarted a stupid process. Bro should have just kept quiet and just kept going, kept doing their thing, kept doing their thing, kept doing their thing. What idiots, man.
None of what they did was illegal. It had no consequences for them. Spooner even met Paul Smith in 2020, explaining to him how they did it.
Bro, like, what's that? And look at this. Look at these idiots. Going to meet the people who give away the money and tell them, this is how I scammed. No, not scam. This is how I got onto your show and took 25% of your earnings. Why?
Back in 2003, while the consortium collected cash, the lives of Charles, Diana, and Tagwin were destroyed. The Ingrams faced constant harassment and humiliation in public. Their cat was shot dead with an air gun.
Yo!
They had bags of vomit thrown at their home, windows broken. Their 3 daughters have been bullied at school. Charles resigned from the army. The family went bankrupt. Whittock resigned from his lecturer's job. And perhaps most absurd of all, he had to trademark his name to stop a company from naming cough medicine after him.
Nah, that is hilarious. Hey, W Fern, man. I love these videos. I am a big fan, bro. This channel is like, their content is just so informative, so good. It's like TV value. Like, this content shouldn't be free on YouTube, if that makes sense. It's so good.